Hello guys, so welcome again back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be going through the documentation of this system, Victor School for Membership System. So we are going to be going through all the 7 chapters, as you can see over here, all the way up to the last chapter, that is chapter 7. So sit back, relax and enjoy the show. So beginning with the first part that includes inputting of your details, all of them, your school code, your index number, your title of the project, your school, and where submitted to. Then you have to tackle the second part that involves the documentation of the declaration. So this is where you declare that the work was done by you, it's basically a part where you declare the work is yours. Then you have the supervisor's declaration that will certify that your supervisor, that should be your teacher, was there to supervise you during the tackling of the project. Then you have a dedication, and this is a part where you can dedicate this project maybe to anyone, maybe the school, maybe the or school that engage in clubs and etc. You can decide to dedicate it to them. You can decide to dedicate the project to them. Then you have the acknowledgement. This is where you mention everyone you would like to thank for the success of the project. Maybe your teacher, maybe your parents, maybe your school principal, or your other friends as well, whom you did together with. Then here you have your table of contents that should outline all the 7 chapters. As you can see, mine from chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So again, you should be able to highlight all of them. Then beginning with this chapter 1, this is where basically you introduce us. You tell us membership Victor School, what is that, and maybe you can introduce us and tell us what they are planning to do or what they normally do in their activities. Now you can mention that they have clubs, where each club there is a teacher who has some responsibilities, like these ones listed over here. So you can briefly introduce us to the school, or tell us how does it work. So that's what we are mainly up to. Then we can go to system analysis. That's where you start defining the problem. In this case, you can tell us that you observed the automation process, or you observed how they operate, and you can mention some of the points that maybe data is coded about the students, the storage and managing of school and clubs. There's also storage and managing of student membership. In this case, also their roles have to be stored as well. We also have storing and managing clubs activities and events. We also have tracking of members who join or leave a club at the beginning of every year. So in this case, this is what you observed while you went there in that school. So it could mean that you physically visited the school to maybe check on how they function or how they work. And then you have management of club finances that are generated from club activities, and this would include registration fees and other expenses maybe incurred during club activities. Then you have computing of the school's financial contributions to the club's activities. So you might have observed that. Then you have computing of the savings for each and every club. Then there is generating of reports. So these basically are the points are what you did observe while in the school. Then the overview of the existing system. This is where you give a brief look of how is the old system, or how is the system that they are currently using, how does it look like. So you can therefore need to go to the existing system structure. In this case, you can give a summary of how the school does their functions. Maybe for the member registration, maybe you can mention that when members are required to apply, the school has to record their data, and also you can specify the mode that they actually do that. Okay, if it's manually on a paper, then maybe filing it, you can as well mention that. Then membership in a club as well, you can mention. If they do record in manual books and files, you can also mention them over there. And you can also mention that it is usually difficult to maintain the records, because if they are using files or a physical means to store data and records, it will be very much tedious when it comes to retrieving that data. So again, you have to mention that as well, and some other disadvantages that you might have faced over there, but you can just mention a limitation or two for each and every point. Then you have membership again in clubs. So again, if it's done, again this one I've mentioned, then we can go to activity recording. You can tell us how do they record their activities, maybe through books, through files, or through a computer system, but say it's old or something like that. Also tell us how do they make their decisions about which activity to go, who and who should be involved, which club should be involved, and etc. Then you can mention as well that there is a manual nature of keeping records, and maybe a challenge that was faced was that the books often went missing and were misplaced. So if a book gets misplaced, it could lead danger, because that data will not be retrieved, or it will be missing, and the activity won't be referenced well, because the source is already gone. Then you can have record keeping. You can try to explain to us how the school or the clubs, how do they store their those students that have registered, those that are going for clubs, those that are maybe engaging in activities, the clubs that are engaging in activities, and the collections and everything. So you can give a conclusion that maybe this manual system was not inefficient, or was inefficient because of all these challenges that they were actually facing. So after you are done with giving us the existing system structure, you can give us, or you can go to the overview of the proposed system. In this case, you can this is where now you start explaining to us. You have a vision to develop a computerized system for this particular school, for their, maybe to improve on their operations, or to solve these problems that you might have listed here, like maybe storing records manually on paper, and etc. So if you are creating a computerized system, you must give us a brief overview of maybe what is expected of it, or would be its function. In this case, you can mention maybe collection and storage of information about school members, their clubs, societies, to also store some membership data and some transactions in this case. Now you can mention that the system will be designed to efficiently handle processes such as tracking of income, fees, that is those who register, as registration fees, activity engagements, and fees that are collected, and etc. You can also mention that it will be expected to generate a report. Now this, because this is an example from a management information system, and one of a function of a management information system is generate generate accurate and up-to-date records. So that is a function that must be present in your database management or in your information system, because this particular example, this particular question at hand is an example for database management system that falls under information systems or management information systems. So you still have to mention that. Then you can as well tell us that it will be very much user friendly, it will be easier for the clients to use, and etc. After that, you can go to the objectives of the purpose system. This will be what is being expected by, or what are your objectives when you propose this system to us. Yeah. So you can briefly mention that your proposed system has some objectives, maybe improving accuracy, providing real-time information by generating reports, maybe to enable generation of accurate and up-to-date information about maybe some various transactions and etc. Maybe to offer a user-friendly interface that enables patrons and members to access and manage club operations. So you can quickly mention all of those benefits, or not benefits but objectives. So there are differences between objectives and benefits. So the benefits now typically means that if you start using your system, how will it be of help to the consumers of the Victory School Club? How will it be of help to them? Maybe you can mention that it will lead to improved accuracy, enhance speed in generating reports, because maybe if previously they were doing so manually on books, if you bring in a concept of computerized system, it will be very much fast in generating such reports. Then simplification of processes of computing the finances, and reducing also errors that can be made if a normal human was carrying out that task. So you can also say mention some various benefits, maybe better decision making and etc. Then there is the scope of the system. Again, these are the major functions that your system will do. Maybe member registration and management, club registration, fee collection. Maybe for those who register, can decide to collect their fees. You know, we remember very well that each and every club has its fee of joining, on the membership fee. So you have again to record that as well. Then you have record keeping again. Again, you can mention that it will maintain the records of the various transactions that are being carried out, maybe the financing, the activity, money fees collection, and maybe the membership registrations and etc. Then after you are through with that, you can go ahead and carry some cost and benefits analysis, or in other words, you can call that as a feasibility study. So in a feasibility study, you want to try and find out are your economical standards, or the money that you have, or will it enable your system to be accepted in the community, or how well you've set up you've set up yourself. In this case, you might consider some feasibility studies such as economic feasibility, the technical feasibility, operational, and there is also usually a schedule feasibility. In this case, I can start with that. So schedule feasibility is a type of feasibility study in which you as the team that is developing the system, the information system, what are your resolutions to maybe have to develop the system, or have the system complete in about the 7 months that you are given in this case. So if you are to finish the system in 7 months, what will be your resolutions as the the software engineers or the system engineers. So you might decide to be meeting more often, maybe taking an example, meeting more often, dividing work maybe, or maybe adding more people so that you could be, or you can be able to make the system complete in 7 months. So this is quickly what we mean by schedule feasibility. Is just some resolutions, or how you decided, or how you will complete the project in the given time. So that is what it means. Then you can go to technical feasibility. So this one involves examining your current hardware and software, and maybe evaluating and seeing that it is quite fit to start the development of this project. So you can maybe decide to, if your computers have some old or worn out hardware, you may decide to maybe replace. So that one you'll do after you've carried out a technical feasibility. So also the software, if you have outdated software or you have unlicensed, you may decide to maybe license it or maybe replace it if it is needed. So that is just briefly technical feasibility. Then you have the economical feasibility. This typically deals with your funds. In this case, will it be accepted in the society if maybe we have some value for this and that? Will it be accepted in the society if maybe you are to complete that project? So basically that's what it entails. Then we have operational feasibility. This one deals with is a type of feasibility study that deals with the examining of those that are going to operate the system. Maybe you can mention, would they require some training? They require to attend regular training, and or maybe what is the cost for that? Will they require special or skilled personnel to automate or use the system? So that's the main thing that you could mention. Then after you are done with the first chapter, there is chapter 1. You can first of all declare that according to your feasibility study, you got some benefits, or the cost benefits was much higher than the benefits was much higher than the maybe the value that you had intended. So it can be, this project can be declared as technically, operationally, and maybe economically feasible. So it means that development can commence after you start or you finish your feasibility study. Then you have to go to the second chapter that involves information gathering. This briefly the method that's used to collect the data, maybe for you to know that Victoria School Club has clubs and societies. Maybe you might go and visit them, you might carry out some interviews, you might administer some questionnaires, you might go there physically and observe. It depends on the method that you'd like to use. So here you have to mention at least 2 of them, maybe interviews and observations, maybe questionnaires. In this case, if you mention questionnaires, you must tell us what is that. Maybe it is a document that is filled with some pre-filled questions and some choices where a user needs to select at least one of those answers that you've given there. Then you have to mention their advantages and disadvantages as well. For instance, a disadvantage is that the user is limited to those choices that you gave there. So if the user has another opinion, he or she cannot give the full information, which will affect the development process of the system. So you have to mention all of those. If you use interviews, give us a sample of the interview, the questions that you did ask, and etc. Then the surveys, if you used surveys, also if you did observe. But for observation, don't need to prepare anything, because here you just tell us what you saw. but for the interviews and questionnaires, you have to again inform us what questions did you ask. Inform, maybe you can decide to draw a diagram here and show it. So maybe you can say that in conclusion, the data that was collected maybe through various methods, it will be verified, cleaned, and organized into a DB system for maybe further processing and maybe aid in the system design phase and the system coding phase. So after you've done that, you can summarize the fact-finding methods that you used. You can maybe give some limitations that you saw, and maybe there was an unorganized system, that was the old one, and maybe etc. Then after you collect your data, you can go ahead and specify your system requirements. So in this case, you consider these two parts. There is a hardware and a software requirements. So you can consider some other things such as functional and non-functional requirements, but these both are what we do consider most. Now, hardware requirements means the minimum specs or specification of the machine that you did use, so that they can check also on their side that their devices meet the same requirements, so such that if it doesn't meet those requirements, they will need to be purchased or upgrade if needed, and etc. So with me here, like for instance, I can say I used a processor, that is the Intel Core i3, there's a 7th generation, and I also used an 8 GB of RAM as my memory, and I used a hard disk of 1 TB. But this is hard disk, you don't have to specify all this size, but you just use yours, because the system cannot occupy even more than 1 GB, but you can just mention it. Maybe they would be needing other files in the future, and etc. And also you need a method of communication between the user and the machine, in this case the computer. So you will need a keyboard and a mouse, and specify used a USB type. You can also add others as well if you'd like to. Maybe you can add some printers. Yeah, you can also add some storage devices that you did use. Also you can decide to specify as the make of the machine that you used. For instance, if you used Dell, you should give us that make of that system. If you used Lenovo or HP or whatever device that you used, you can give us the specification of that. Then you can go to the software requirements. In this case, still is the software that you did use while you are developing your system. For instance, if you used a Windows 10 operating system, or later on is recommended, because if you have 11, then generally it is an improvement of this 10, so the system will run with minimum or no errors. So you can mention the operating system that you used, and also say the database management system. In this case, Microsoft Access SQL Server. In this case, this one is pre-installed in Microsoft Access, so I don't have if on their devices, you will just make sure that Microsoft Office is indeed installed in their devices, such that they may be able to use your system. Then the programming language, in this case, it means that database management system must support or must be able to read or execute software written in that language. So in this case, because Microsoft Access uses the VBA or the Visual Basic Applications, it is normally referred to as the Visual Basic 4 applications. So in short, it is VBA. So I can also mention the language that you used. Then I don't have necessary to mention about the functional and the non-functional requirements, but briefly, functional means what will be the building blocks of processing of the system. In this case, if it's maintaining records, maintaining data of clubs and etc., calculation of expenditures and earnings and etc. Then for the non-functional requirements, and mention about security, performance, user friendliness, and scalability. Maybe scalability you can quickly mention. If the system, or if in the future there are advancements in technology, or maybe some other things, how easily will your software be upgraded, or how easily will it adapt to these changes? So that's what we mean by scalability in this case. We can move on to the next thing, that is the system design. There is a flowchart over there. So for the flowchart, you just have to consider what is the flow, or what is the general flow of maybe the system. How, if you start registration of the students, how will it flow? Or if you start the system, how will it flow? Yeah. So if you start, and maybe you might require to fetch some membership details for the students, and see if maybe the student is registered or not, such that if he is not registered, you may decide to register them, and maybe to offer them the services, or maybe let them engage in the club's activities and etc. Then the fees that are collected, how are they being stored? Maybe you can use some symbols to, and in this case you'll be using symbols to indicate that flow. You know very well that you start with an ellipse, or maybe this shape over here, not an alternate process, but it resembles an ellipse. So if you can decide maybe to start your program, then indicate using your arrows. So if you start with your ellipse over here, you indicate using an arrow. In this case, for instance, I can open my my editor over here, and we see what we are actually saying. So you can maybe decide to come up with such shapes. Maybe use a process, maybe to, maybe not a process, but an input, maybe to alert the user to enter the student details in this case. Then you can decide to a process to maybe validate the student details. Then if the student is not registered, you might decide to branch and maybe carry out a process of registration, and maybe take the loop back again to where it started, such that the details are entered again, they are validated. And in this case here, you use a decision to if the student is registered. If this is no, it will go to the registration part and start over again. If this is a yes, you might decide now to maybe the process of fetching club details, maybe that process over there. You can forgive my drawing because I'm just showing you how you should tackle this part about flow charting. So this is where you started, come and input your data, validate if the student is registered. If not, route out to the registration part. If yes, load clubs and maybe carry out to the other services. So basically that's how you should tackle that flowchart. Just you have to mark the flow of the program, and be sure very much to use the correct symbols in your drawing. Don't mess yourself up, because it will actually cost if you use wrong symbols. Then there's the second part, is a grouping of variables. In this case, this means a grouping of variables means collecting all information that might be used to identify one thing. For instance, a student has different things that can identify him. Maybe a name, maybe an admission number, a class, an ID, and the day that the student joined the school. So all those different entities or different fields, not entities but different fields, we can group them to one entity called the students group. So each and every field will represent each student. Then for the clubs, again, the club ID, the name, the fees, then the patron, and that patron joined. Again, you can identify these as one club, so we can group these into club. Again, activities, the same. You have to record the activity ID, the club ID, the activity name, amount, date, and the status. Then you can also acknowledge that as one activity, and or one entity called activities. Then club finances, collect all the data that relates to the clubs, then store it over here as a club finance. So each and every finance will have a finance ID, the club ID, the total revenue, the annual parties in this case, and etc. Then we have the membership, also all the data that is related to a single member. About membership, you can group it and place it in one entity. Then you have your input design, your table design. In this case, so I mentioned how we did design your tables. You be sure to draw these using Microsoft Word. Don't insert some screenshots here. You draw using Microsoft Word. You just come to the insert tab and tables, choose your table. Then you can highlight the length of the table that you want. But in this case, we need a table with only two columns. In this case, the field name and the data type, but the rows will be depend on the number of fields that you have with your table design. So be sure to divide your table into two columns, the field name and the data type. Then you can insert your field names over here in one column, and their corresponding data types on the other column. So you briefly do that with all your tables, maybe the patrons table, the membership tables, the finances table. It will store a record of the finances, the activities, and etc. Then you can go ahead to your form design. In this case, the actual design of your forms. So again, because you basically need a method of interaction between you or the user and the computer. So in this case, you will need some forms that will be used to maybe for input by the user who is using the system. So you also have to design all your forms. Again, you don't insert any screenshots. As you can see here, these shapes that are inserted here. So if you can go to the format tab, you can find these shapes here. Then you can insert the desired shape that you would like, and etc. So you design all your forms again the same way. Then after you are done, make sure you design at least 5 forms. You can also design your reports as well. Maybe you can have a title, you can have a address and an email maybe, and some information. Then you can have your fields again, and the data that will be displaying as in form of a report. So again, you design your report similarly. Again, you still aren't allowed to use screenshots in this chapter, so please be very keen not to insert any screenshots in this chapter. Then you can go to the general system security. So again, this is where you mention something about the security of the system, maybe the backupping, the restoration. We also have user authentication and etc. How will the users be authenticated when they want to use the system. Then you can after that you are done, you can go to your 5th chapter. This involves a system construction. In this case, this is where now you start constructing the system in Microsoft Access. Now this is basically where milestone 2 will start, because you are now constructing the system. Then you can start with the database relationships. You know very well about relationships. So if I can zoom in on my relationships, as you can see here, all my data is linked appropriately. So again, be also very much sure to mention about or to do about with referential integrity. Referential integrity means that for a value to be saved in another table, maybe that value represents a primary value in another table. For instance, if you are going to register for membership, the student ID that you enter must match the one that was you registered within the students table. So you can enforce referential integrity between those two. Also, when you are being financed, the club ID must exist in the clubs table again. Also, when a patron is being added, it must be registered in the patrons table. That is what I mean. So referential integrity, as I have said, I hope you know how to insert it. You just have to maybe drag a field to the secondary table. Then when this dialog box pops up, you can check the referential integrity. And in this case, referential integrity, please make sure the two fields that you are trying to link, they have the same data type, because if it doesn't have, it won't work. So make sure they have the same data type. Then after you enforce your referential integrity, you can go to database tools, or not tools or tables. This is again where you design all your tables, maybe beginning with the registration, your membership, and maybe the other tables that you did use. So you'll add them up to there. Then you can go to your queries again. This one, now you are allowed to insert screenshots of the work that you've been doing. So you can insert all of them as required. So if you did, and also some other parts that maybe you did design in SQL view, in Microsoft Access SQL view, you can as well insert the same screenshots. And then you can have a user manual that explains how the users or how the others should handle the system. Or it can be used as a tutorial, maybe to show people how to use the system that you've written. And you can start by demonstrating how to install, start and run the system. Maybe give us some screenshots of if you start the system, how does it appear on the screen, so such that if the years is appearing otherwise, we'll know what to do, or maybe troubleshoot, or maybe restart again if it's the wrong system, and etc. And you can decide to display a home screen, maybe after the splash screen or the startup screen completes. This is the screen that is going to be displayed. Then you can briefly tell us the process of registration of members, the financing, maybe the membership tracking. In this case, just insert your screenshots, maybe membership tracking, the activity recording, and etc. Then again, the generating of reports. Tell us how your system is generating reports. Again, can be sure to insert your screenshots, maybe the membership report, the financing report, the member tracking report, and the club savings report. So again, you can also offer them some troubleshooting guides, maybe some common things or common issues they might face while running the system. For instance, there is the data type validation and some other things. Maybe inserting short string values in a field that had a number data type. So you can tell them to what to do by making sure everything they input is numbers and etc. Then you go to the second part. So the sixth chapter deals with the actual implementation of the system. So there are various things you have to consider, like staff training and the changeover strategies. So this one is the basic thing, or the major things that you consider. The staff training involves those that are going to use your system. They will obviously need some training so that maybe know how to maybe use the system. Then you can mention that very briefly. If all of them need to be trained or just one of them, you can mention that, and also the duration of that training and also the cost. Then you can go over to the changeover strategy. This in this case means if you are shifting to the old system to the new system, how will we do that? Because you cannot just wake up and say we shift, because you still have to have a plan. So you can decide to maybe give us the changeover strategy that you did use. If it's a parallel one, if it's straight, yeah, you remember those changeover strategies that we did have. And we also have phased. So if you decide to use parallel, in this case is where you used both systems until you are confident that the new system is fit for use. So you use both systems in parallel. Maybe you might decide some operations will be used by the new system, some operations will be used by the old system. Then until now you are satisfied that the new system is fit, you can now decide to discontinue the old system and now continue using the new system. So that is a parallel changeover. You might need to mention that. Then I might also need to mention some other changeover strategies, like straight. Straight now is where if the developers release the system and they bring it to the school, they will discontinue the old system immediately, then start using the new system immediately. So that is straight changeover. Then you have the phased. For the first changeover strategy is where you implement your system in phases, just like we have with our current education system. We have those ones that are in the 844 still, and you have the competence-based students. So that is an example for phased, because as the old model phase goes out or the students exit, we are continuing to embark on the CBC one, because the new ones that will replace the old ones will come to the competency based. So that is what we call a phase. So basing an example using the system, you might decide to maybe start with the registration part. You do away with the manual way and start with the other method that comes in as using the system now for registration. Then you go the next thing, if it's club membership, do away with the old one, start using a computerized one. So you will implement your system in phases until it is complete. So that's what it actually means. So we might mention the data migration and etc. Then you have the testing, the evaluation and support. Evaluation, in this case you have to evaluate, is it meeting the intended requirements, its performance, how is it functioning, if it needs to be improved, can mention that as well. If it needs some upgradings, maybe some further development, you can mention that as well. So that is the 6th chapter. Then you have the last chapter, that is system review and maintenance. So this one, there is no much to mention. I just have to mention you intend maybe to keep reviewing the system after maybe each and every 6 months or a year or maybe 2 years. It depends on your choice, because you might need to evaluate how is it functioning and maybe decide to improve it if need be. So you might as well mention that as well. And the last thing you can mention is the challenges that you did face during the development, maybe the costs. If it was too high, there was technical issues, maybe you are few of you, maybe the training wasn't adequate and you still have difficulties in developing, maybe there was frequent blackouts. Such things are what you can mention. Just any challenge that you can encounter while writing a project, even if it skills can give us the strength of the automated system. So as one can mean is like the benefits again you are still repeating, but in this case you can mention now that they are using that system, what strengths are they having. If it's better resource management, accessibility and etc., then you can have some recommendations maybe for further improvements in the future. You can conclude that for the system you are very much honored to be a part of it, and you are very much happy that it could help a school club in its operation, and maybe you could recommend that the same system be adopted by some other schools. Then you can give your bibliography. In this case, it means the resources that you used to gather some information about the SDLC, or the books that you used. You can quote them here. Then you can have your appendix as last. If you used any form of short form in your project, you can come to us here and tell us the meaning of that short form, and together with the page that you did quote that. In this case, like for me, Kenya shillings, the terabyte, the SQL, which means a structured query language, and gigabyte. So basically that was the documentation part of this project. So again, we hope you did enjoy. You can still contact us if you require a copy through the number in the description below. So again, thank you very much for watching.